How does this place still exist? This is the Lincoln's Home National Historical Monument. It's basically just a couple of blocks within downtown Springfield. That is the old Springfield, restored and kind of just preserved the way that it was back in the 1800s. It all is featured around Lincoln's home, which is behind this tree over here. There it is. It's been pretty neat getting the chance to check out a lot of the historical sites in the area, especially the Abraham Lincoln things. There's a lot to learn and a lot to be seen around here. If you're like a history buff or into American history at all, I would definitely recommend checking out Springfield. There's definitely, like I said, there's a lot to do here. And other than that, I've been spending a lot of time working the past couple of days. 2 days ago, I got to do some interviews at some of the local famous restaurants along Route 66 in Springfield. So went to the Made Right drive-thru. It's like one of the first drive-thrus to ever exist in the United States, and I got to try a horseshoe for the first time, which is like a famous kind of food around here. It's pretty local to this area. It's basically just the bottom bun of a hamburger, and then they put meat on it like a burger patty, and then they put like French fries and cheese sauce, and they put more meat on top, and it's like this enormous thing. It was really delicious, and that place also made homemade root beer as well, so that was the first time I got to try something like that, and I really like root beer, so it was pretty cool to get to check that out and do the interview there. And then we also went to the Cozy Dog Cafe as well, and that's a pretty famous spot along the area, and got to try a homemade corn dog. That was pretty cool too, so definitely been some eating that was going on, a lot of cool interviews. And today I'm going to be doing a lot of drone work, so we're going to be going to some of the local towns in the area along Route 66 and just taking some aerial shots pretty much for the whole afternoon today. Okay, so I've been driving around quite a bit here in the Midwest, and when I first got here, I started noticing these family video stores. I remember seeing the first one and thinking like, all right, that's a little bit weird. Like, I thought Blockbuster went out of business how many years ago? Like, how does that business exist? And then I started seeing more and more and more of them, and they are literally everywhere around here. So I looked it up and I started reading some articles about it, and they've got a pretty interesting story. This is in fact a large chain of businesses that in 2018, despite Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, still makes the majority of their revenue by renting out DVDs to people. Like, I don't even know that many people that still own DVD players. I wanted to go in there and look at what they had, but I felt kind of stupid doing it because there's literally no way that I could actually play the DVD, and I don't plan to go buy a DVD player anytime soon. If you're anything like me, you might be wondering, like, the business side of things, how something like this is possible. While all the other video stores were shutting down and going out of business, how did this one remaining chain manage to keep going? Long story short, this is essentially a family-owned business, right? It's a privately held company that has been in the family for years and years and years, since the 70s when they first started. They were one of the first video rental companies to exist, before Blockbuster, before all the other ones. And they were cautious about how they went into this business. At the very beginning, they had the foresight to see that cassette tapes were eventually going to get replaced by better technology. Of course, VHS lasted for a really long time before DVDs ended up coming out, which worked to their benefit, but they were always cautious about it. And I say that because their plan, their strategy, was to also hedge with real estate. So all of these family video places that you see all throughout the Midwest and even in Canada, I mean, there's hundreds of locations that still exist to this day. Their plan is to actually physically buy the locations. They would use rental income during the first 5 years to pay off the mortgage entirely at every location, essentially making Family Video also a real estate company. As times changed and the internet became a thing, interest obviously went down in renting physical DVDs and physical videos, so they made some changes. But because they owned all of the physical locations, they were able to make the size of their stores smaller and then create sections that they could rent out to other companies. So even in this building here, you can see that there is space for rent. The parent company of Family Video owns that space and then is able to rent it and make money off it. They also started franchising pizza chains and all kinds of other things to create business as well. But what's the most interesting thing is that over 90% of their business to this day still comes from renting videos. If I remember correctly, that annual number is $400 million a year. They make $400 million a year renting out videos to people across the United States. How do they do that? They cater to rural communities. Over 90% of their stores are located in places that are small towns in the Midwest, in the middle of the country, where there really isn't access to things like great internet. A lot of the people who live out on farms 10 miles in that direction or 20 miles in that direction are away from cell towers. They don't have access to good internet, so this is what they have to do anyways. A lot of people just enjoy the nostalgic feel of going in there and renting a video instead of streaming it online. They also are able to get movies earlier than Netflix, 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. They've got movies listed on there that are not on Netflix or Hulu or any of their competition yet, so that's an advantage. There are benefits to still renting this way. Okay, that's enough about Family Video. I went on a little bit of a tangent there. I just thought it was a really fascinating story, and it's also pretty neat that they are still opening stores this year, next year, into the future. They still have plans to have grand openings, and they're not planning to give up. They're going to be in business for the long term, mostly because they also own all that property and can continue to do so. I hope you guys like farmland and drone shots, because that's pretty much been my life for the past couple of weeks. I love how quarters get you a half hour of added time on these parking meters. They might be the cheapest ones I've ever seen. Alright, so somewhere in my head I've got the Gettysburg Address. Just been there since I was like 12 years old. And I really just want to try to recite it all in one go. And what better time to do that than when surrounded by statues of Abraham Lincoln. Alright, let's give it a try. I'm gonna have to say it as fast as I can because my arm is probably gonna fall off. 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. We are now engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are men on a great battlefield of that war. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who died here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but that it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these men shall not have died in vain, that that nation under God shall have a new birth in freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. My arm hurts. Okay, so I definitely messed up a couple of times, but that was like the first take that I took, and that's been up in my head since like a 7th grade school project or something like that, so it's stuck with me ever since. So the average high in this part of the country during this time of the year is around 77 degrees Fahrenheit, which would be really nice. But ever since I got to the Midwest, it has been unseasonably warm. We're talking like high 80s, low 90s, pretty much every day. Next week, there's a day that it's forecasted to get to 98 degrees, which breaks the previous record high by 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and that was set in like 1960 or something like that. So it's really, really hot here. Once I finish up getting this video edited here at the Starbucks, Starbucks, I think I'm gonna hit the road and start driving north and spend a couple of days up in the Chicago area. It's gonna be a lot cooler up there by the lakefront, so I think I'm just gonna go try to enjoy that and then come back next week and get back to work. I still have a couple more weeks of work here in the Springfield area, but I want to cool off for a couple days and see something different, so I think that's what I'm gonna do. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to y'all in the next video.